most common are coins, usually pennies, feathers, scents, especially in the first year. You'll suddenly sniff somebody's cigarette smoke or a cologne that's familiar, or cooking odors or something that you associate with someone. And it happens in your mind. So if you think, oh, I'm not smelling that immediately, it's going to be gone. So don't think that. Instead say, that smells something like Grandma's perfume. I wonder if she's around. Are you around, Grandma? Please do something else. I think you're right here. Give them a little shout out and a hug in your mind. But say it aloud. Say the words aloud. I didn't do this before, but dead people have said that it's important you increase their energy when you do that. Mm-hmm. Other common signs are a song on the radio. You get into an elevator or walk into a store and you hear the song that was played at your wedding that you danced to, and you haven't heard it in 30 years, and there it is. And it's not even the kind of music they usually play. This is a very common sign. I know some people, some who are out of body, who give that kind of sign all the time. They say it's easy for that. I got one last Sunday from a sixth level being I never knew in life, who I've helped with his autobiography, and he and I have kind of become friends that way. And he gave me a music sign. What are some of the other things that they do? They can appear as a vision. If you are waking up or you're going to sleep and it suddenly looks to you as if someone you love who has recently died is standing there, say hi. Because this is a very surprisingly common thing. More than half of widows and widowers will have a vision of their spouse within the first year after the death. My mother did. It was unremarkable. Usually you're not afraid of them at all, where it's sort of like surprising, but not that remarkable. I've seen, I'm glad to see you, just howdy. It's a way for them. They're all about love. It's a way for them to say, I love you, I'm here, I'm fine, I'm healthy, everything is okay, and you're going to be joining me. That's all it means.
So if you do see these signs, speak to them just as if they're here. And
yes, they can do it again. Please keep doing this.
Well, now what about if someone crosses over and doesn't seem to want a relationship with us? Now, I don't know, there might have been problems prior to the death. There might have been arguing, separation. Give us an example of how we handle that if we want to make amends, for example.
Say I forgive you, or say I'm sorry. One of the things that has become clear to me more recently is that if you don't get these things worked out within the family, especially before death, it's going to have to be worked out after death. I'll give you my father as an example. I thought I had a fine, childhood and growing up. Of course, till I was 11 or 12, my father was a raging alcoholic. But then he gave it up, and it was fine. We were fine. When I was doing my research, he died in 1992, I believe. And when I was doing my research with mediums, I went to all these mediums, and I was so frustrated because I didn't really have any dead people that were recent, so I didn't get much. I became very skeptical about mediums as a result. But they often would describe my father and say, he's right here, but he refuses to speak. I didn't know why. And I guess I had so much else going on, raising children, and I didn't worry as much as probably I should have. Then 20 years after he died, he came to a reading that my daughter was having. She was a young adult. And he said, will you please tell your mother and your mother's sister that I am very sorry to have messed up their childhood.
Oh.
Now, here's a man who it took him 20 years of pain. I'm sure it didn't feel that way to him because time is different there. But it would have been so easy for me to say as he was dying, I love you. If there's anything you think you did wrong, you didn't. You're perfect. I love you. And go with our blessing, and I'll see you soon. You can say that when they're on their deathbed. And I think everybody should, because you don't want to cause difficulty. You don't want to cause pain. What appears to have happened, and I know of 2 other instances like this, always with children, people who have done something, wrong with children, usually been either verbally abusive or like my father, just heedless of the way his actions affected his kids. It's hard to really enter the Summerland. You may not end up in the lowest level, although some people probably do, but you can't really move on. You're basically stuck until you can forgive yourself for what you did. And in order to forgive yourself, you've got to get them to forgive you. That's often the case.
Mm-hmm.
So let's clear it up right now. There is no offense anyone has committed against you that is so bad you cannot forgive it. Because you've got to forgive it. That's the only option you have. So we'll learn how to forgive and do it right.
Well, let me ask you this. If you're still angry at a loved one or a hated one, if you're still angry at someone who's crossed over, who's on the other side, or if you are grieving over them, does this slow their journey?
It can, yes. It can be a drag on their journey. And it's not fair and it's not right, because in a very real way, nothing that happens here is real.
Yes.
We are playing a part. We do not have access to our whole minds here. We have access, I'm not sure what the percentage, 10, 15% of our mind is all we are accessing when we're in a body. For two reasons. Number one, we voluntarily give up the rest. A very advanced being I know said, basically we pack up the rest of our memories and knowledge and all of that in a suitcase and leave it there, because if we take it here, we won't take these lessons seriously. So it's packed up there, and plus your meat brain is very poor at accessing information. So, nobody is functioning at 100% here. And we're just here to learn these lessons. We're only in the gym for one afternoon, and then we're going to go home. So not taking things here so seriously that we cause others pain is a really important thing to internalize. Never causing another person pain is so, so important.
Oh, I agree with you 100%. Let me ask you this. There are people out there listening to you now, watching you now, who may not know how to contact loved ones. They want to. Do they need a medium? Can they do it on their own? Tell that person who would love to connect how to do it.
Well, the first thing I'd do would be to watch for signs, because you may be able to establish a relationship on your own through signs. I know people who have done that, and it's worked very well. I am as psychic as a post, and therefore that's not what I can do. But there are very, very, very good mediums. There are also some charlatans, so you've got to be careful, have someone well recommended. I know of several. My favorite, the one I use personally, is Suzanne Wilson in Arizona, but there are others who are very good indeed. I don't know, Maxine, do you have one or two you'd like to mention too?
No, I really don't. I really trust what your guides and friends have shared with you, because you seem to be an incredibly loving being, and to me, it's all about love. So
it's all about love. That's it. Whatever the question, love is always the answer. Someone hates you, love is the answer. Someone did you a horrible, horrible, deliberate, tragic thing, love is the answer. It's a one-trick pony. That's what life is. It's all about love. And the more we learn to love despite the things that happen to us that maybe would make us upset, but the more we learn to love, the more we are going to grow. And, I described level 3 and how magnificent it is. Hey, level 4 is much more beautiful. And level 5 will blow your mind. And then there's level 6, which is just beyond the pale of wonderful. I have a friend who lives on level 6. He can go anywhere in the afterlife. His life is 1,000 times more fun than is the life of someone who is barely clinging to a level 3 level of spiritual development. You don't want to have only a little fun. You want all of it.
Yes.
So for heaven's sake, take it very seriously, the need to learn how to love and forgive. That's the core of spiritual growth.
I agree. But I'd like to go back just for a second to the various kinds of mediumship And how do you, now I have a dear friend who is an incredible medium, in fact, but she doesn't do it professionally yet. And when she met me, she said she was a medium, and I said, no, you're not, you're a well done. And,
I was going to say the same thing. Yeah, that's a good joke. I like that one.
and she really is. How do you, I mean, how would you go about, do you interview them? How do you know? I mean, to me, I would go by how it feels.
Yes.
How the person.
The best way to do it really is to get some names and get some recommendations. I'm pleased to recommend Suzanne Wilson. There are a couple that she recommends as well. So there are a few who are really, really good. Suzanne Giesman is another one. I don't know, they're all named Suzanne for some reason. But these are excellent people who are very tuned in. What I love about Suzanne Wilson is she gets names. I mean, she got Dorothy and Oliver, my parents. She said afterward it wasn't so hard because she just saw The Wizard of Oz and then she saw the movie Oliver. But she also got Bertha. What do you do to get Bertha? I mean, it's many mediums will give you sort of vague, I think there's someone to the side, maybe a mother vibration, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Not her. When I have a reading, or anyone in my family has a reading with Suzanne, we are on a farm. My grandparents were Danish immigrants. They had a farm in Massachusetts. Well, they have a splendid, huge dairy farm on the edge of the ocean, which is exactly what my grandfather would have wanted. And that's where all the readings happen with my family. In fact, my son just had a reading yesterday, and she didn't know the last name, but when she got to the farm, she said, I think I may know who you're related to. And then my mother showed up. She said, are you related to Roberta Grimes? Because she knew my mother by then from several readings. But that's the kind of thing that can happen with a good medium. It's like so real. It's real.
And I would imagine it is so reassuring.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I already know the truth. And since I know the truth, I'd never worry about my family. But what Suzanne has done for me is to help me to know my primary guide. And if that has opened my life, I can't believe this is someone who spoke to me when I was 8 years old, and he spoke to me again when I was 20, and I have ignored him, for my whole life. I feel really, really bad, but he's forgiven me for all of it. And to have a relationship with your primary guide is really, really great. It's like having the world's most miraculous toy suddenly given to you. I'm sorry, Thomas, but that's how it feels. It feels so good.
Oh, I would imagine. I remember how it was when back in the 60s, I was studying astrology and, of course, metaphysics and psychic phenomena. And I remember Hans Holzer came to town. He was the ghost. And my mind was blown because it opened up a whole new dimension that I've never left.
Most people have no idea, Maxine, and that's what's tragic. Everybody has guides. Everybody is infinitely loved and infinitely precious. Most people have no idea how much we're loved and how relatively easy it is to make God very happy. It's not hard. It's just all we need to do is to be learning to love and learning to forgive. It's funny, we have anyone who's a Christian and has a Bible, they have all the lessons they need right in the Gospels. I would ignore the rest of the Bible, read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Based on what the dead tell us, that's the surest prescription anyone has ever found for how to live the best possible life.
Beautiful.
Nothing to do with religion, actually.
Has nothing to do with religion. Oh, absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Right. Well, God and religion are separate.
That's right. That's right. Isn't it odd that people associate God with religions? It's very strange because God doesn't have anything to do with religions.
Well, I know that you're going to have more to say about that in your next book, which is coming out soon. And I don't want to, open Pandora's box, but will you give everybody just a little idea of what this fabulous book is about, number one. Number two, you're coming back and we're going to talk about it.
Yes, for sure. I didn't want to know my guide because I didn't care. It didn't seem important. I felt I was doing fine. But he broke into a reading I was having on the farm with the cows around and asked to speak with me. And he told me, this happened just a few months ago, he told me who he was. And he told me that in his next to last lifetime, he had been Thomas Jefferson, which didn't surprise me as much as it would have because I've always been a huge fan of Thomas Jefferson. I have a big bust in my office that he tells me is dusty. Oh, my goodness. Anyway, he said that when he was Jefferson, he had wanted to write a book about Jesus. In fact, he had written it, but it never had been published. So he wanted me to write it now for this generation. Well, of course I'll do that for you. No problem. And within the month, I was channeling Jesus, actually. And I can't describe that experience except that we did 40,000 words in 2 weeks. And it needed no editing. So obviously someone very good at channeling. There are many people, by the way, who have channeled Jesus. And it can appear to have actually channeled Jesus as opposed to just thinking that they were. But I didn't believe in any of it until it happened to me. The book that they wrote is called Liberating Jesus. They wanted an explanation of how it had come about. So there's an appendix that tells the whole story. And this is something that people who love Jesus will be thrilled about. This is something that people who think that it's important to have control over other people will not be happy with. But if you read the Gospels, it's all there. All he really does in this book is to say, listen to me. It's time to listen to me. Nobody's listening to me now. And what he says in the Gospels is a prescription for the 21st century. He literally calls it his second revelation. He's trying to really make the first revelation work. That's really what it is. People who have read this book have been, they've all either loved it or said, you know, you've just rocked my world. I'm going to have to sit and think about this for a while. But it's not me doing it. Nothing in that book is from me. It all came from either Jesus or Thomas, who is thrilled with it, who fussed over it for another 2 months after Jesus left us. And now they're talking about, through Suzanne, they're talking to me about how to promote it. I just trust what they say. It's their book. And
what blows me away is you are a practicing business attorney.
And I'm not psychic. Maxine, I am not psychic. But what happens, I mean, it's easy to see how you can channel information from your spirit guide. Our spirit guides are almost parts of ourselves. They're very, very tight with us. I mean, when Thomas and I were working on the book together, it felt as if I just suddenly was a lot smarter. You know, there was a table of contents in my head. I typed it out. There were ideas. I typed them out. We were having a lot of fun. And then he seized Suzanne when she was in a parking lot and said, to tell me they're very sorry, but it's going to be a lot higher energy because the master would be working with me directly without any controls. Please let us know if it overwhelms the physical. I didn't know what that meant until 2 o'clock the next morning when I woke up and I had to write. And I wrote right through all that night and all that day until almost 9 o'clock the following night when I was so tired I could barely move. And I said, all right, Jesus, I need to sleep. Please don't wake me up until, after 4. What are you going to do? You can't not do what he needs you to do. So give me till 4. I woke up the next morning and my clock said 4:01. So I said, okay, deal is a deal. Got up and started working. And when I went into my kitchen at 6, the clock on the oven said 4:01. But of course, by the time my husband got up, it was normal again. One of the things that the dead will do, and especially our guides will do, is to give us signs on our clocks. And I think Jesus has a sense of humor. You want 4:01? I'll give you 4:01. It was a beautiful experience. I cannot tell you. The most amazing part was toward the end, when I think the connection gets tighter. I started to hear what sounded like his spoken thoughts. It was the most amazing thing I can ever describe to you. And the things that he was saying touched my heart so much, because he was saying, if you love me, why won't you listen to me? And that's, when you think about it, that's such a human thing to say. That, I mean, one of the things that Thomas has told me is Jesus is genuinely part of God. Jesus is really, he's not just an advanced spirit, he is part of God. And that we won't listen to him is pretty tragic when you think about it, don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I feel I have a lot of sympathy for Jesus. I will do whatever he needs me to do to try to get his message to the world.
And I will help you. I will help you.
Thank you, dear.
Now, we have about 5 more minutes or so, maybe 8 minutes. You've got to tell us about this wonderful conference coming up next week. Next week, tell us about it.
Yeah, it's been long in coming, but next weekend there is a conference in Scottsdale, Arizona. The Academy for Spiritual and Consciousness Studies is sponsoring it, and it's called Life in the Afterlife. And we have assembled 25 genuine experts in every aspect of trying to understand what goes on in the afterlife and beforehand, and all the details. My own talk, I'm giving 2 actually. One of them is Where is Up? And I'm going to talk about the physics of the afterlife. Now, physics is like one of those words you never ever want to hear, but this is actually fun. I mean, how is it possible it's all happening in the same place? And how can we make sense of these things? And just the pictures, my wonderful friend Wendy Zamet, who does the Zamet Friday Report, has done me a PowerPoint, because not only am I not psychic, I can't do PowerPoints, and her PowerPoint is beautiful. So the pictures she has assembled have just blown my mind. So, but people are going to be talking about what happens to children, what happens to people who go off track. Is it possible to be possessed, and how can you get rid of a possessing demon? Just, near-death experiences, all the details of what it's like to live in the afterlife, how we grow spiritually, all those things. And on Friday afternoon, I'm going to be giving a workshop on liberating Jesus, and I'm going to be talking about what Jesus says we should be doing right now. And he, believe me, has a very strong set of opinions. And they have warned me that if we don't start taking Jesus seriously, within 200 years, we will have a climactic religious war. And it won't be started by Muslims.
Fascinating.
Yeah, and that's pretty scary when you think about it.
So, yes, it is. Well, this marvelous conference, first of all, how can they find out more about it? Do you have a site for it?
Yes, of course. Go to ascsi.org. ascsi.org. And if you're anywhere in the Scottsdale area, the hotel is full, in fact, to the brim. But if you live near enough to be able to come and spend a day with us, I think you'll love it. This is going to be the best afterlife conference ever given. I'm confident that's true. Last year we had a good one, and this year is twice the size and 4 times the quality of speaker. It's amazing what's assembled. So I'm excited. I can't wait to be there.
Oh, I know. Now let me ask you this. Are you going to be recording this? Can people who can't attend, can they get CDs or DVDs? What's the deal?
There will be MP3 recordings done, I'm pretty sure, and those will be available. We've found people are less interested in having it videoed, so the whole thing is not being videoed, but a few of the talks are being videoed, and the one that I do on Where is Up is going to be videoed. I have to do that for my dear friend Wendy.
Great. I would love to talk to you. Well, we are scheduled to talk after the conference.
Yes, I'll be right back. It'll be the day after I get back from the conference. I'll be full of news.
Yes, you will.
I can't wait to talk to you again about all the things that happened.
And then when Liberating Jesus is out, you have to come back, because we've got to talk about that. But before I let you go, though, can you tell us a couple of the people who are going to be, or if you have all of them, of course, the names of some of these amazing speakers?
Gary Schwartz is our keynote speaker, and Gary Schwartz is the greatest living scientist, or maybe even the greatest of any of the scientists who have ever investigated the afterlife. George Noory is going to be there, and George Noory is the host of Coast to Coast AM, and he's going to be there and presenting. We're going to have, for the first time in the United States, a truly public seance experience by a physical medium. David Thompson is coming all the way from Australia, and I can't wait. I've never been in a real seance before, but Wendy and Victor Zaman have been in a couple of hundred with David, and the stories that she tells me about what happens in these seances are just unbelievable. So those are just a few of the people that are going to be there. Ineke Kodem is coming from all the way from the Netherlands, which blows my mind. And she's an expert in deathbed visions and the things that happen surrounding death, which I think her book is terrific. I can't recall the title of it, but she's going to be talking on that. But there are those people, and there's another 20. So it's going to be a feast, a true feast. And it's set up with only two people talking opposite one another, so it's going to be a little easier. I should say, too, there's another book that I co-authored that is out at the same time as Liberating Jesus is out, and that's Mikey Morgan's autobiography. He's a sixth-level being who learned when he was here to snowboard, and now he snowboards in the afterlife. And he is just amazing. I can't tell you and I could do a whole conversation on Mikey. His mother, who swears she never would have signed up for this, is the one through whom he communicates. She's going to be there as well and teaching people how to use a pendulum. Just going to be a feast. It'll be a feast for anybody who cares about really coming to understand what's going on.
Absolutely. Well, for those of you who would like to get in touch with Roberta, I failed to give out her contact information. It's robertagrimes.com. Easy enough. That's her site. Easy.
It is. And sweetie, I answer emails. So if anybody has questions, don't hesitate to contact me through the website.
That is marvelous. Before we go, we have a couple more minutes. Do you have any last minute thoughts or ideas to pass along to our audience? Because I know they're hanging on every word that you're saying.
Our enemy is fear. Unfortunately, our religions instill in us fear. That's how they control us. They instill fear, and then they say, but we have this little cure for whatever the horrible thing is we told you about, but you have to stay in the pews. This is true. It's not just Christianity. It's all of them. Mm-hmm. There is nothing to fear. God has never judged anyone. God is nothing but perfect love, and God is infinitely powerful, by far more powerful than anything else. If you stick with God, nothing can ever hurt you. But God loves you in particular are God's best beloved child of all of them. And if you always remember that, you'll sit a little straighter, you'll feel a little better, and you won't be afraid to investigate these truths. Jesus said, you shall know the truth, and the truth will make you free. And so true. It frees you from fear, and it empties you out and fills you with joy. That's what it does.
And that is what you are. You are joy. And you have an open invitation to come back anytime.
So thank you, dear.
Thank you for being my first guest on Movers and Shakers. And I hope that all of you will join me next time when, once again, Roberta's a tough act to follow, but I will have another wonderful mover and shaker as my guest. Until then, this is Maxine Taylor reminding you that if you want to change your life, change your mind. See you next time.
helped with his autobiography, and he and I have kind of become friends that way. And he gave me a music sign. What are some of the other things that they do? They can appear as a vision. If you are waking up or you're going to sleep and it suddenly looks to you as if someone you love who has recently died is standing there, say hi. Because this is a very surprisingly common thing. More than half of widows and widowers will have a vision of their spouse within the first year after the death. My mother did. It was unremarkable. Usually you're not afraid of them at all, where it's sort of like surprising, but not that remarkable. I've seen, I'm glad to see you, just howdy. It's a way for them. They're all about love. It's a way for them to say, I love you, I'm here, I'm fine, I'm healthy, everything is okay, and you're going to be joyful. Signs that are most common are coins, usually pennies, feathers, scents, especially in the first year. You'll suddenly sniff somebody's cigarette smoke or a cologne that's familiar, or cooking odors or something that you associate with someone. And it happens in your mind. So if you think, oh, I'm not smelling that immediately, it's going to be gone. So don't think that. Instead say, that smells something like Grandma's perfume. I wonder if she's around. Are you around, Grandma? Please do something else. I think you're right here. Give them a little shout out and a hug in your mind. But say it aloud. Say the words aloud. I didn't do this before, but dead people have said that it's important you increase their energy when you do that. Mm-hmm. Other common signs are a song on the radio. You get into an elevator or walk into a store and you hear the song that was played at your wedding that you danced to, and you haven't heard it in 30 years, and there it is. And it's not even the kind of music they usually play. This is a very common sign. I know some people, some who are out of body, who give that kind of sign all the time. They say it's easy for that. I got one last Sunday from a sixth level being I never knew in life, who I'm after death. I'll give you my father as an example. I thought I had a fine, childhood and growing up. Of course, till I was 11 or 12, my father was a raging alcoholic. But then he gave it up, and it was fine. We were fine. When I was doing my research, he died in 1992, I believe. And when I was doing my research with mediums, I went to all these mediums, and I was so frustrated because I didn't really have any dead people that were recent, so I didn't get much. I became very skeptical about mediums as a result. But they often would describe my father and say, he's right here, but he refuses to speak. I didn't know why. And I guess I had so much else going on, raising children, and I didn't worry as much as probably I should have. Then 20 years after he died, that's all it means.
So if you do see these signs, speak to them just as if they're here. And
yes, say thank you. Do it again. Please keep doing this.
Well, now what about if someone crosses over and doesn't seem to want a relationship with us? Now, I don't know, there might have been problems prior to the death. There might have been arguing, separation. Give us an example of how we handle that if we want to make amends, for example.
Say I forgive you, or say I'm sorry. One of the things that has become clear to me more recently is that if you don't get these things worked out within the family, especially before death, it's going to have to be worked out